When I was growing up in an affluent New Jersey suburb, just 25 miles away from Manhattan, I knew I wanted to live in an apartment that looked like Mia Farrow's from Hannah and her sisters. So I decided to go about my escape from the suburbs to the standard channels of college selection. But my ranking system had little to do with academic merit and way more to do with this like game of separation between me and an apartment full of houseplants on the Upper West Side. I wanted more than anything to go to a fancy art school and mix with a whole group of like, fancy artistic people. And I ended up going to Becerra. You know, my time there did way more than expand my intellect. I mean, it expanded my sense of entitlement, almost to a point where when I left, I could barely tell myself apart from like the extremely wealthy people I met there. So I decided I had to become one of them. From guidance counselors across the nation to painfully optimistic Hallmark-looking TV ads, we've all been exposed to the message that student loans help create good debt, helping to build wealth over time. Higher education promises to improve quality of life, grant access to high-quality jobs, and higher earnings. So, as CNBC reports in June of 2020, 44 million Americans collectively hold 1.6 trillion in student debt. But despite its normalization, this messaging distorts the destructive, if not deadly, impact it can create. As the Center for Social Law and Policy reports in October of 2021, 1 in 14 borrowers experience suicidal ideation in response to the financial stress of student loans. Women are in particular peril, with 56% of female college students holding 2/3 of all student debt in the nation. While the narrative around personal debt is framed around irresponsibility or living outside one's means, students are borrowing out of necessity, not choice. If not addressed, the student loan crisis will continue to wreak havoc on the physical, mental, and emotional health of its holders, footing the bill of inequity to a new generation and forcing them to pay the ultimate price. My Misspent Youth by Megan Daum. I graduated in 1996 and got this entry-level job in publishing. And you know, I started renting this apartment with my two best friends, an elementary school teacher and a film student. And together we rented this pre-war apartment with chipping paint. And I was ecstatic. We lived as recent graduates should, you know, eating ramen and 99-cent White Rose macaroni and cheese. And although I was living hand to mouth, I loved it there. But after about a year of office work, I decided that a MFA in creative writing would be the most direct route to legitimacy. So I decided to go to grad school. And in my 3 years at Columbia, everyone I met told me not to worry about my loans, you know, because student loans are low interest and long term. So not thinking about them became a skill that I was really good at. The year I entered grad school was the year I stopped making decisions for a person in my financial situation and started making rich people's decisions. You know, going to grad school is a rich person's decision. Staying there when you realize that you don't have enough for scholarship is also a rich person's decision. But I mean, it's really hard to see that you're acting like a rich person when you're becoming increasingly poor. My checking account is overdrawn by $1,783. I have a balance on a Visa credit card that has hovered around $7,000 for the last year. and I have student loans equaling about $60,000. I have no savings, no investments, no pension, no inheritance coming. I need to make a tax payment this month of like $5,400, and I think it's gonna be really hard because I did just pay back a now ex-boyfriend like $3,000 because he helped me with last year's taxes. Instead, there was this really bad winter in like 1996 where I was trying to make it 3 weeks on like $34. Okay, so I'm walking everywhere and it's freezing outside and I'm stealing my roommate's food and all of this stuff, right? And then one day I'm on the walk and I slip on ice and I get up and I slip again and I called a cab. And in the cab, I took out a private loan for $2,500 from Columbia. Half of it went to pay for like my credit card, but I used up the other half within a month. It's really easy to want to go into a list of things, I don't spend money on. I don't spend money on dependent, I don't have like a cat or a fish or anything. I've worn the same pair of shoes for like 3 years. My entire closet is still made up of clothes from the early 90s. I have a TV over there, but I can't bring myself to spend $34 on cable a month. So kind of just sits there. Instead, I've decided to spend money on things that have come to seem like necessity. Okay, so like I'll get a coffee in the morning and then get sushi for lunch, and then I'll go have drinks with a friend and drop like $45 on Merlot and chicken. Because it's so much easier to feel guilty about, spending like $60 on a blender than it is to examine the real reasons that I feel so impossible to live within my means. I noticed, that I've been drinking more, mostly at home by myself. And I realized that while I was drinking, I'm doing these like desperate math equations. So like you realize you drank half a bottle of wine and then you feel really guilty about spending $7.99 on a bottle of wine. And one night I'm doing these equations and I realized that despite having a gross income of $78,000 last year, okay, despite not having gone overboard on things like shoes or clothes or anything, or, despite having followed every single money guide to success, I am more than $75,000 in the hole. The days that I can pretend that money is just money are going so far apart. When you're in this kind of debt, bills stop mattering. I can't allow them to matter because if I was worried about them, I would get so worried that I wouldn't be able to work. And then that would only put me farther behind. And what's crazy is that my kind of debt is socially acceptable. I went into debt for my career, for my education. I live in the most expensive city in the country because for a really long time I thought I had to. I spend money on martinis and fancy dinners because I thought it was the whole point. The point of living in New York and the point of being young and the point of living. But I haven't made a life for myself. I've purchased one.